As wildfires rage out west, some in Congress are considering adding conditions to possible disaster aid. North Carolina Congressman Tim Moore joining us now. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson spoke about the possibility for adding conditions to disaster aid to California in the wake of those deadly wildfires in the Los Angeles area. Now, he mentioned that if state or local leaders made decisions that led to the fires being worse than certain conditions may be necessary, do you believe that these conditions are needed?
Well, first of all, our hearts go out to the families, the victims, the businesses, so many who've been impacted by this terrible disasters we've seen in Western North Carolina. We know how these acts of God, these natural disasters, how they can impact lives and uproot and do so much. But I do think it is reasonable when we go through the process to provide aid that we make sure that if there are policies that either the municipalities or the state has done there in California that have added to or worsened this disaster, that we require that they remedy those. I've been told, for example, that they had restricted the amount of water that was going to be able to flow to these fire hydrants over concern about some fish that's not even on the endangered species list. And so I think it's reasonable to say that we're going to, first of all, the commitment that we're going to take care of these folks. We're going to take care of paying for this disaster. But if there are things that have occurred through governmental policy in that state, that we require those things be fixed so that we don't have this happen again.
Now, speaking of disaster relief, North Carolina is still recovering months after Hurricane Helene really devastated the area. You co-signed a letter with fellow North Carolina Congressman Chuck Edwards asking that the White House keep federal resources in Western North Carolina. So the big question here is what comes next for disaster relief for the people who've been affected by Helene? And also, if you've heard from people in your district, what have they been asking for?
So the biggest thing that folks want is they want some certainty about where this is going. Folks not only lost their homes, I mean, they lost the land on which the homes formerly sat. They lost businesses. And so we need to make sure that when it comes to the federal flood insurance and to the federal disaster relief, that the federal government keeps its promise to the people of North Carolina. That more than just a $750 check or any of these kind of things are delivered, that folks are able to rebuild. Western North Carolina wants to and will rebuild, but the federal government does have a part in that through the funding that's been in place. I'm very proud of the fact that Congress has fully funded the disaster relief to date, but that's just today. We know these costs are going to go up. We know we're going to have to deploy even additional funds. So we're going to get that done. The biggest thing that we're wanting to make sure of right now is that the bureaucracy is not creating problems by cutting off benefits for folks who need it or adding in regulatory roadblocks or hurdles that unnecessarily delay the rebuilding and the recovery of our community.
Well, we want to kind of change gears here really quickly. You were just sworn in recently as the new representative for the 14th District. We want to talk about your goals. So what are those for your first term in Congress?
Well, first and foremost is to help with the rebuilding of Western North Carolina. Hurricane Helene, this damage is just unimaginable of what it's done to our state. Of course, we are at the same time seeing what's happening in California with the wildfires. But I want to make sure that we do all we can to take care of the victims of Helene, to make sure that we rebuild Western North Carolina, that we do so in a way that makes sense. In terms of beyond that, I want to make sure that we engage in policies that make our country stronger, both militarily on the world stage and fiscally. Things that I think we need to do are, number one, get our national debt under control. As we're doing this interview right now, we have a debt of about $37 trillion. That's something that our children and grandchildren and their children will pay for if we don't deal with. We also need to make sure that we continue the Trump tax cuts that are in place. That can be done. We can control spending. We can support our new president on the world stage and make sure that we make our nation strong, not just for now, but for generations to come.
Yeah, definitely a long list you've got there. We'll have to check back in a few months and kind of get an update with how everything is going. But we do want to thank you so much, Representative Moore, or Congressman Moore, so much for joining us here this evening. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. Great to be with you.